Hear ye, hear ye. You have stumbled upon the spot of dead.
Yep.
Yeah, that was because the Bills are in London this week. So
I was like, I don't know what's happening.
it's royal. And
Is that royal? Or is that just weird?
It's royal, you wouldn't understand.
It's royal.
Yeah. Alright. So, what's new, my lady?
Nothing. I'm
right.
still reading A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yeah, I've heard.
It's rough out here.
I've heard all about it.
These books are like 800 pages.
Yeah, I tried reading it to you one night, and there was a lot of fancy names.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I don't have any news. But I've just been working nonstop, which is why this episode is coming out late.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well,
So sorry about that.
yeah, so sorry for the delay on that one, but, life gets wild, and we had a wedding to go to, and work to go to, and we just didn't have time. Plus, this one apparently took a long time to look into, so...
Work sucks.
Can I hear a fucking plane going over now?
Oh, well.
I guess that would be a good intro. So what are we talking? Well, actually, yeah, good intro with the plane. But just a reminder, we got Twitter and Instagram, deadspotpod, and the email is deadspotpod@gmail.com.
Why did you just sing it like that?
So people remember it. It's a jingle.
Right.
That's how the biz works. You wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But anyway, what are we talking about today?
All right, so let's set the scene.
Set it.
It's March 8th, 2014.
I was there.
It's the early morning hours, like midnight, and you've just boarded a plane heading to Beijing. You find your seat, you get comfy and cozy, take out your headphones, open up your book. 1 hour later, you're lost and never heard from again.
All right.
So this is the story of the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
Yeah, let's do that.
What do you know about it?
I just know it's missing, and I thought they found a part of it somewhere at some point, but that's about all I know.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
All right, talk to me, baby.
All right, so the plane is a Boeing 777, which was first introduced in 1994 and had an excellent safety record. I think that's important to point out because an inspection of the plane on February 23rd, which, like, are they not inspecting planes every day before we get on them?
I thought they were supposed to, especially, like, fuel and,
yeah,
all
but
that
do
bullshit.
they check, like, besides, like, fuel and, like, making sure you have oxygen, like, do they not mechanically check the plane every day? Because this says the plane was last checked on February 23rd, 2014, and it showed that the plane was fine and there was, like, no mechanical issues with it.
I would prefer that they check it every time, but I don't know what the regulations are. Probably with the FAA. Well, it's not America, so I guess it wouldn't be FAA, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
If any pilots are listening, let us know, because I don't fucking know.
The plane was carrying 12 Malaysian crew members and 227 passengers from 14 different nations. Some of these nations included Australia, Canada, China, France, India, Malaysia, New Zealand, Russia, and the United States. The pilot of the aircraft was 53-year-old Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Zahari was from Penang, which is a state on the northwest coast in the peninsula of Malaysia. He joined Malaysia Airlines in 1981, and after receiving his pilot's license, he became a second officer in 1983. He was then promoted to captain in 1998. Zahari had a total of 18,365 hours of flying experience, so it's safe to say he was an experienced pilot.
Hold on. How many hours?
18,365.
Let me do some math. One more time, 18,000.
365.
365 divided by 24 hours in a day. That's 765 days divided by 365 in a year. That's over 2 years worth.
So that's not really that much.
I mean, when you break it down like that, Not really. How old? 53 or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that's... Well, once you're past it, 2 years isn't a long time, but when you're in it, it can be. So, he did a lot.
All right, well, his co-pilot was First Officer, 27-year-old Farik Abdul Hamid. So sorry if I pronounced that name incorrectly.
Sounds fine.
He joined Malaysia Airlines in 2007. In November 2013, he began training as first officer of a Boeing 777. Flight 370 was supposed to be his final training flight, and then he was going to have his examination on his next flight.
Well, in a way, it was his final something flight. Apparently.
Supposedly.
Apparently.
He had logged 2,763 hours of flight experience.
I'm not going to break that one down.
Out of 227 passengers, 153 of them are Chinese citizens. Now, let's get into what happened.
Get it.
The flight was scheduled to leave Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:35 a.m. local time and arrive at Beijing 6:30 a.m. local time. So the flight was supposed to be 5 hours, 34 minutes. During this time, the plane would consume approximately 82,000 pounds of jet fuel. That's so much.
Yeah, well, I would think so. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, but the aircraft carried more fuel than it needed just in case it had to make an emergency landing at one of the airports close by, which I'm sure like all planes do that. So at 12:42 a.m., the flight took off and was cleared by air traffic control to climb to 18,000 feet. Voice analysis determined the first officer communicated with air traffic control when the plane was on the ground, but once it was in the air, the captain was the one communicating with air traffic control, which, makes sense. Mm-hmm. Shortly after departure, the flight was transferred from the airport's air traffic control to Lumpur radio, which is a frequency used for en route air traffic. At 12:46 a.m., Lumpur radio cleared the flight to 35,000 feet, and at 1:01 a.m. they had confirmed they had reached it. The last verbal communication between air traffic control and Flight 370 was when Captain Zahari acknowledged a transition from Lumpur radar to they were going into like Vietnamese airspace. Okay. So the crew was expected to signal air traffic control once it reached Vietnamese airspace, but it didn't. So commercial airlines are supposed to be in constant contact with air traffic control no matter what at all times. So when they couldn't reach them, air traffic control started to get concerned. The captain of another aircraft tried to contact them using the international air distress frequency in order to tell them to contact the Vietnamese air traffic control. The captain said that he made contact, but all he heard was mumbling and static. So that's weird.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a bunch of 9/11 stuff I've watched about the planes. Once they were taken over and all that, they turned off their transponders that like mark their location and altitude and all that bullshit, and bunch of the controllers couldn't contact the pilots.
Well, we'll get to that if you let me get there.
And whatnot. I'm just saying, it reminds me of a bunch of 9/11 stuff I watch because, I watch a lot of...
I know, that's why I said you would like this one.
9/11 stuff.
So calls made to Flight 370 went unanswered, but the flight could still be seen on satellite radar. So they were like, okay, like we can still see that they're in the air.
So the transponder is on.
Well, let me get to that part. So
okay.
At 1:21, Flight 370 disappears from the radar screen.
Uh-huh.
So it was lost on the screen at the Kuala Lumpur, the air control center, and was lost at the same time on the Vietnamese one too. So both of them lost. They couldn't see it anymore. So air traffic control uses secondary radar, which relies on a signal emitted from a transponder on each aircraft, which you were just talking about. It was determined the transponder was no longer functioning on Flight 370, and air traffic control believed the transponder was manually turned off since all communications on the plane went dark at the same time. So the Malaysian government did not believe this was a mechanical failure. They believed it was done on purpose.
User error. Or user... What do you want to call? User... Not interference, but...
I don't know.
Never
Deliberation.
User... whatever.
It was the user.
Yeah, continue.
The final data from the aircraft showed it was cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet and was traveling at 542 miles per hour and had 91,500 pounds of fuel when it disappeared from the secondary radar. So Malaysian military radar showed the aircraft turning right, but then began a left turn in a southwestern direction. It continued across the Malay Peninsula, fluctuating between 31 and 33,000 feet in altitude. The flight then banked around the island of Penang, flew northwest up the Strait of Malacca, and headed out over the Andaman Sea. I don't know if I said that right.
As far as I know, you're doing great with these pronunciations.
Where it dropped off the radar. I'm not doing great to me. I feel like a child learning how to read.
It sounds good to me, so keep doing what you're doing.
All right, thank you so much. All right, according to the Netflix series MH370, the plane that disappeared, which is where I got a lot of this info from, but...
And I wasn't allowed to watch it when she was doing this research, so I haven't seen it yet.
But also, I got information from, like, other sources, too, which we can link in the show notes. After falling off the radar, the plane did continue to link up periodically over the course of 6 hours with the geostationary Indian Ocean satellite operated by the London-based company Inmarsat. So Inmarsat pings continued for up to 6 hours after the last contact. According to this data, MH370 turned southward once it reached the Andaman Sea, flew straight for hours until it ran out of fuel, and then most likely plunged into the southern Indian Ocean, somewhere between southwestern Australia and Antarctica.
Cool.
Yes.
Not cool, but...
Well, no. So when the plane initially went missing, the family members weren't even notified that their loved ones were missing. So a bunch of them, like, went to the airport to pick up, like, their family, and all they saw was that the plane was delayed. So they're, like, waiting and waiting and waiting. And then about an hour after the plane was supposed to have landed, news broke that the plane was missing. So, like, nobody even told them. They ended up, like, getting a message on their phone that the plane was missing. And that the plane hadn't been in communication with air traffic control for over 6 hours.
So they're just standing around
That's,
staring
like,
at the screen.
completely fucked up. Yeah.
Looking at their watch. Oh, they should be here by now. And then... Because I was just picturing, like... Because, it's like the flight board or whatever you call it with all the returning flights. And then I would just imagine it's on there and then it just suddenly gets taken off.
Yeah, and in the documentary, there's, like, footage of, like, families standing around, like, staring at the board. Like, what the hell, man? This plane was supposed to be here an hour ago. So the families were told to wait in a hotel across the street from the airport. People were crying, wailing, sitting, standing. The place was described as a literal living hell. During this time, some of the family members would call their loved ones and their phones would still ring. So they wouldn't go automatically to voicemail, which, is ultimately giving them false hope that maybe their family members are still alive. And the family members were questioning the authorities why they couldn't just, like, trace their cell phones to see where the plane was, especially if it seemed like all their phones were on and working still. But, I don't know, they said they couldn't do it that way, apparently. Mm-hmm. So, that's the, like, official story of what happened.
Now let's get to the real story of what happened. Let's get to what they don't want you to know.
So now we can get to, like...
Except for in the Netflix series.
Well,
then they'll tell you. They'll tell you there.
We can get to some, like, theories of, like, what people think happened, which a lot of people think it was the captain. That he, like, killed everyone on board.
Sure.
So we can talk about that one first.
Okay, go ahead.
Alright, so many people believe that the Malaysian government, they know a lot more about Zahari's personal life than they're telling anyone, which obviously, like all governments, know more than what they actually tell you. So the first narrative is that many people believe it was a mass murder-suicide by Zahari.
Well, first of all, that's always what I'm afraid of every time I've gotten onto a plane.
Like, what if the pilot's having a bad day?
That's literally what I'm thinking of. I'm like, I don't fucking know this guy or lady. But, like, what if they're just having a terrible day and they're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, that did happen. I think it was a German aircraft. The guy, I'm not going to look into it probably for an episode or anything. But there was like a German aircraft and he killed everybody on board because his co-pilot walked out of the cockpit, so he locked him out, and then he just like crashed the plane into a mountain on purpose. That's all the info I remember about it. I don't remember names or anything, but that happened semi-recently.
I can tell you the story of what they think might have happened.
So, again, I'm just saying, these people have worked really hard to become pilots, and I'm sure it's a great paying job, and they actually enjoy it, and that's why they do it. But, we all have bad days sometimes.
We sure do.
And who knows? Just don't have a bad day when I'm on your plane, please. Because it's very scary.
Yeah, very scary.
Very.
All right, so Zahari was blamed early on because he was a veteran pilot. They said if anyone could have pulled off something this horrible, it would have been him because he was that skilled and, he knows shit. So the first theory that they call it the pilot. Pretty original, I know.
Uh-huh.
So they set the scene. Scene is set. So Zahari decides he's going to commit mass murder-suicide. Once he leaves Malaysian airspace, he never contacts Vietnamese air traffic control. He then somehow locks out his co-pilot by asking him to, get him a drink or something. So once the co-pilot leaves, he locks the door and starts his plane. Dun, dun, dun.
That's what I just said about the other guy. But this is not what I'm talking about. It was definitely a different thing.
Yeah.
So.
He turns off all the electronics so the plane can disappear off the radar. Zahari then heads back towards the Malaysian peninsula. Why is peninsula so hard to say?
Peninsula?
Peninsula?
Maybe it's our Western New York accent, but
I don't know.
I say peninsula. Well, because I talk about peninsulas often. Also, just for the record, do you say often or often?
I think I say often.
Often? You say the T? It's not just OFFEN to you?
No.
Often?
No. Anyway.
Let us know what you say, often or often.
So
anyway.
Then they say maybe at this point the co-pilot realizes something is wrong when he can't get back into the cockpit, so he's banging on the door let me in. Zahari then starts depressurizing the entire cabin, killing all the passengers and the crew.
Damn.
He waits for the fuel to run out. After 6 hours, the engine shut off, and he nosedives the plane right into the ocean.
How... I don't know the depressurizing of the cabin.
Yeah, I think that means
So their heads exploded or something probably.
No,
from
I think
the
you just
pressure?
run out of oxygen and end up just
suffocate?
losing conscious. Yeah, suffocation.
No breathing.
Would I rather? Yeah, no breathing.
Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding.
Exactly.
But
Would I want to die that way on a plane instead of just being in a crash, or is a crash instant and I'm dead immediately?
Well, on the crash, you are aware of what's happening.
Yeah, that sounds really traumatizing.
Unless you're fucked up on Benadryl or alcohol, you're going to be full aware of what the fuck's going on, and I wouldn't want to do that because there's going to be a lot of shitted pants.
Hell yeah.
But then again, if the plane's going down, I guess let it loose, let it rip. Did you hear about the story where
about the person pooped on the plane through the plane?
She had severe diarrhea and they had to turn the plane around.
But my whole thing is, why are you pooping through the whole plane? Why don't you just go into the bathroom?
Or maybe she was running up the aisle and it was just falling out or something. I don't know, but it was bad enough that it had to be hazmat situation when they landed. And
why do I feel like that would happen to me one day?
I think they said they had to retire the plane because you can't get all that out of that carpet.
They had to retire the plane?
I think that's what I heard about it.
They didn't just tear up the carpet?
But I thought I heard that they did, but I'm not sure. So.
Okay, let's get back to this. So in the documentary, the Netflix one, this theory is told by Jeff Wise. Now, Jeff Wise is this guy who's done a ton of research into where this plane might have disappeared, and he's also obsessed, conspiracy theorist obsessed. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
So this theory, there's a couple of problems. People who knew the captain said he would never, ever do anything like this. Which, I mean, do we really know anyone? That's what I always say.
Yeah.
It's the same people that, kill someone and their friends are I can't believe they would kill someone.
Or even severely depressed people who take their own lives. They're oh, they were always so happy and this and that, but you don't really know what's going on behind those eyes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. His sister said he was a very gentle and caring person. Zahari did YouTube videos to help other people with, like, plumbing things and, like, car issues, which they say, like, an extremist wouldn't do that. And they also said extremists don't usually take 6 hours to go through with their plan. So he would have just been on the plane by himself for 6 hours. And he was also known as one of the best pilots that the Malaysian Airlines even had. His flight crew, like in the documentary, the one woman who was on there, her husband, they were both part of the flight crew, but her husband was on the plane. And she said that, like, she knew the captain, and she's like, there's no way he would have done that. There's no way. Mm-hmm. And even the people that, like, that worked with him but weren't on the plane said there's literally no way.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, sometimes you never know, but if you see somebody every day or, 3 out of 5 days for X amount of years or whatever, like, you get to know somebody, whether you want to or not. And then it's easy to be like, because, like you mentioned how people kill people and stuff, like murderers, they're called. How sometimes they'll be like, I knew it. There were signs. It was there the whole time. I wish we would have done something. And then sometimes it's like, I never would have fucking thought, Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Who knows?
So, but 2 years after the plane disappeared, Zahari's home flight simulator was found to have mapped a very similar flight pattern to the one indicated by radar and satellite data.
What?
So it said the flight simulator mapped out almost the exact same route just a month prior to the plane's disappearance.
Okay.
The FBI had the data, apparently, like, the entire time, and never gave the information to the Malaysian authorities. So, this is also something to keep in mind when you think about how or, like, what might have happened, because why would he have that?
Why would he simulate the exact same flight pattern?
Yeah, it's, like, a little different, but it's mostly the same.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the next theory. So that's just the captain's theory.
Okay, and part one.
Yeah.
On to part two.
So the next theory we're going to talk about is whether or not the plane could have been hijacked.
Okay.
So, to understand why some people think this theory has, like, substance or merit, you have to understand a couple of different things. So, 4.5 months after, we'll just call it MH370, went missing, another Malaysian airline was shot down by Russians over Ukraine. It was determined this was Malaysian flight MH17, and it was shot down with a missile, killing all the people on board.
Yeah, I feel like I know about that.
But, like, for an airline that hasn't had any accidents or incidents since, like, I think they said the 90s or the 80s or something, now 2 of their planes have been involved in incidents over a matter of months. One was shot down, and one is just missing.
Kind of sus.
So another thing you have to understand about this theory is where the electronics bay is located on the plane, because this plays a factor in this hijacking theory. It's located under a piece of carpet between the cockpit and first class. So if someone knows anything about the electronics bay, it essentially controls every single thing on the plane.
So it's like a little hidden compartment?
It's like underneath the plane. They like show it, like you can like climb a ladder and get down in it.
Yeah. I've seen it.
Oh, you have?
Not that one, but I've seen that before.
Well, in the first class cabin, if you know about the electronics bay, literally anyone can end up taking control of the plane, because that's where everything is controlled from, which is also terrifying to think about.
Yeah, they should probably put a lock on there or something.
Yeah, and it's not locked. They say it's unlocked. It's like an unlocked hatch.
So just for the record, we're not telling you to open the hatch if you're in first class.
We're saying don't.
Don't. But if you do...
Just don't.
That's on you.
No.
We're not responsible.
So, in the same documentary, Jeff Wise also explains this theory. And he talks about how, like, he was like, thinking about, could the plane have been hijacked? And he pulls up the seating chart of the plane, because you can see where all the passengers would have been sitting. And one of the 3 Russian men on the plane was seated only 15 feet away from this hatch. And this is where the entire theory begins. It's kind of wild, so here we go.
So let's strap in, baby.
So the theory goes Zahari is flying the plane.
Yep.
And the 3 Russians begin their operation over the South China Sea.
Okay.
Someone starts making a scene, probably near the bathrooms. The flight attendants all rush over and try to defuse the situation.
Classic diversion.
As this happens, the Russian first class then slips into the electronics bay, unnoticed. He plugs into the computer of the plane flight control system. Once the plane enters that no man's land, the one that's like between Malaysia and Vietnam, that like one stretch like before you hit Vietnam, when you're supposed to like check into the other airspace. He turns on his equipment and has complete control of the plane. The captains are confused as to why their equipment isn't working, and then the plane starts moving on its own. The Russian agent then depressurizes the plane, cuts off emergency oxygen to the pilots, and they lose consciousness. The people in the cabin also lose consciousness. The Russian man then deliberately alters the Inmarsat data, takes the plane north, and winds up crashing it into the Kazakhstan desert. That's the theory. I was like,
Okay, first of all, that sounds like a fucking Jason Statham movie or something.
Okay, it literally does. It sounds like a Tom Clancy novel.
I'm gonna get in the bottom of that plane.
Like, I've never read a Tom Clancy novel, but I'm pretty sure this is like how they all start.
We're taking over this plane.
Yeah.
We're gonna control the plane.
Well, first of all, this theory this theory is insane.
No.
You can't fly the plane from the inside of the electronics bay, first of all.
Yeah.
So if he climbed out, he would have died because the plane is depressurized. So that doesn't make any sense. And no one really believes this story, but Jeff Wise really runs with it. He believes this plane was hijacked as a distraction from the Russians invading Crimea and how it wasn't taken well by like other countries. So the plane goes missing and then takes over all the media outlets, thoroughly distracting people from what's going on in Ukraine.
I don't know. That whole premise sounds like a dumbass action movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not into that one.
Yeah, I said it was wild.
A little too wild for my liking. It sounds cool, like, to watch as a movie, but I'm not sure that would, like, be plausible. Yeah. But, again, I don't know shit about planes.
All right, well, now we're going to talk about the pieces of debris that were found before we get to the last theory.
Again, to call back, that's the only part I know is that they did find some pieces, apparently. Maybe.
We'll talk about
kind
it.
of.
So, in July of 2015, a piece of the wing is found on a beach on the French island of Réunion. It's spelled like reunion, but it's French, so, you know.
Réunion.
Yeah, thank you.
Found on the beach of Réunion.
Probably, yeah. This proves that the Inmarsat data is correct, disproving the theory of a hijacking because the plane most likely went into the Indian Ocean and not anywhere near Kazakhstan. So, before we talk about the last theory, let's talk about the debris. So, there's this guy. His name is Blaine Gibson.
It sounds like a wonderful fella.
And he calls himself an adventurer. Like, he looks for, like, shipwrecks. And just wrecks.
Sounds like some dumb shit he would put on a, like, dating profile.
Yeah, I think in the documentary they literally say, Blaine Gibson, adventurer.
Hi, I'm Blaine. I'm an adventurer. Life is an adventure. Please join me.
Well, we have to talk about him.
Something.
So, in July 2015, when a piece of the flaperon was found, this was like a piece of the wing, this prompted Blaine to go searching for more pieces. Because he's like, if there's one piece, I'm going to find all of them. Like, he's one of those guys.
Sure.
But he claims he wants to find the pieces for the family to give them closure. But honestly, I think he just wants clout.
I think he's just a little asshole.
It really seems like he just wants, like, recognition.
That's what I'm saying. He's going to try to capitalize on a tragedy.
So,
or
Blaine...
whatever you want to call it.
Blaine then travels to Mozambique, which is in Africa.
That sounds right to me.
And he asks the locals, like, hey, if, like, debris is going to wash up, where is it most likely to wash up? And they're like, check the channel. So they go there. He gets a boat with, like, a couple locals. And they see a piece right on the shore.
Oh, wow.
So ever since then, he has since found over 10 pieces of debris that are likely parts of the plane, but only 2 pieces out of all the pieces they have found so far have been officially documented as parts of the plane.
Okay, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, but is our boy Blaine the only one to ever find any pieces of this plane?
Well, don't get ahead of me and I'll tell you.
Well, I just said I might be, so okay. Go ahead.
So now, not everyone believes that Blaine just happens to find all these pieces of debris when literally no one else has been able to. They have been searching the oceans and the islands, like off the areas of like where the plane has crashed, and nobody has ever found anything.
Except Blaine.
So our boy Jeff believes the debris could have been planted by the Russians.
Uh-huh.
So apparently Blaine has many ties to Russia. He can speak it fluently. He was in Russia when the Soviet Union fell. According to a profile in Seattle Met magazine, quote, he could see that the Soviet Union was on verge of collapse and decided to capitalize on it. Quote.
Smart.
For a decade, Blaine has lived on and off in Russia, working as a consultant to new business owners while saving money for his future adventures. So people think he could be like a spy. Because why is everybody searching for these plane pieces? Nobody can find literally any evidence of where this plane is, but he mysteriously is searching on a beach for 2 hours, by the way.
In Africa.
Yes. For 2 hours, he spends looking for a wreckage that people have been looking for over a year and happens to find a piece of it, all while the media also happens to be there at the exact same time to document it.
Wow. What a coincidence. You know, it's just...
Like, do we believe in coincidences?
Life is wild. It's just amazing that all those things just happen to work out so perfectly for Blaine.
Yeah, and he's just Blaine. Like, I'm not a spy. Like, that's crazy.
That sounds like something a spy would say.
But, like, why is he the only person who's ever found anything of this wreckage? Like, nobody else has ever found any.
Kind of sus.
So, I mean, that's Blaine.
That's also, classic Blaine. That's Blaine, all right. That's what I say. That's Blaine.
It's also important to mention, so when they found the flaperon, the piece of the wing, it was missing its identification plate. So a plane is only missing its identification plate when a plane is manually dismantled. Otherwise, it's on there. So, like, you don't think that's weird?
Well, I mean, after our boy Blaine was the only one to find shit.
Well, he didn't find this piece. Somebody else found the first piece.
Oh, okay.
He just found all the pieces after it.
So, just in general, somebody theoretically took it apart.
Well, they think they took it apart before it was put on the beach.
Right.
So, there were also 12 serial numbers on this piece of the plane that they sent to, like, the manufacturers of the plane for identification, and only one serial number matches the missing plane. One out of 12? Seems a little sus.
So the serial number doesn't belong to that plane?
Well, I mean, the one number matches, but all the other ones don't.
Oh, like a one full-ass serial number, not like one digit.
No, like a full serial number matches as a piece of the plane, but the rest of the numbers on the same piece don't match.
Got it.
Kind of weird.
Kind of sus. Sus Blaine.
They also use, like, weird things to say that the pieces, like the government, that they were definitely from MH370, such as the paint matched the paint from the plane. The paint? The paint. That's all we have to go by is the paint. We got nothing else.
That's it. That's all you need is the paint.
If someone was like, Ashley, this paint from your car matches the paint on that car, must be from the same car, I'd be like, what? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's
like, you have no other solid evidence besides paint?
No. I don't think so. And that's like if they found your hair in a crime scene, and they'll be like, oh, you did this, and be like, no, I just leave my hair everywhere.
Well, I think most girls do.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That don't mean shit about nothing.
Ready to hear some more?
Yeah.
Okay. So another person who is suspicious in investigating the disappearance of the plane is Florence de Changy. I'm going to say Changy, but she's French, so that's not right.
Changy. Like Chingy, but Changy.
Yeah.
What was Chingy's big song?
I like the way you do that right there.
Changy.
Anyway, so Florence, we'll just call her Florence.
Florence.
She's an independent journalist who is featured in a lot of the Netflix documentary and, like, other articles I read. She talks about how there's basically no proof that the plane crashed because, one, they haven't found the site. This plane flew between all these different countries, Australia, Singapore, Vietnam, and not one of them can produce any type of image or radar of where this plane went. Like, we have all this technology, and a giant plane can just disappear.
Apparently, if it crashes into the ocean.
Well, apparently, the plane also flew over an air base on, like, one of the islands that's controlled by Australia. Yet, no trigger warning, a plane was flying overhead, no sirens going off, no fighter jets deployed, like it's a military air base. But seriously, nothing.
Shitty response by the Australians, if so.
Like, I think that's weird, too. Like, if any planes were to fly over an air base here, I feel like you'd hear, like, or whatever sirens.
Yeah, I'd imagine a military base would be very protective of its own airspace.
Yeah, so that's why she's saying, like, what the hell? So a lot of people believe that the plane was actually shot down over the South China Sea, not the Indian Ocean.
Classic.
Allegedly, a woman found satellite images of what she believes to be the wreckage of the plane in the South China Sea. She tries to contact authorities. No one will listen to her or take her seriously.
Hold on. Did she find this on Google Maps?
I have no idea. She just, in the documentary, she talks about... I remember watching this and I
feel like I just heard something about it the other day on, like, TikTok or something.
Like, I rolled my eyes because I was like, are you kidding me? But she's like, I'm a photographer and I really wanted... Like, I just really felt for the families. So I wanted to, like, search through images and see what I could find. And they show, like, the images... And I mean, it does look like a debris field. And she even, like, maps it out, like, pulls up, like, plane schematics and everything. And she's, like, trying to match up, like, the nose of the plane and, like, certain parts of the plane. And she's, like, showing you. And you're kind of like, is that the plane, though?
So it is a plane in the photos?
You can't really tell.
It's not like...
It just looks like a large debris field. I mean, we might be able to find them.
Could you mistake it for a ship or something?
Well, we might be able to find them and then put them up on socials.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Also, besides her, allegedly an oil rig worker saw a fire in the sky the night the plane crashed. Like, because he was in the South China Sea and he saw a ball of fire. So they're like, maybe the plane was shot down.
Oh, yeah.
And some other... pilots saw a large debris field in the South China Sea the night the plane went missing. Which leads us to our next theory.
Okay.
Which is called the intercept theory.
Okay.
So this theory is brought forth by Florence. This is the one that really made me, like, think for a minute, where I was like, am I turning into a conspiracy theorist?
Is this the really crazy one you just told me about earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go.
All right. So apparently, when the plane was being loaded, this mysterious cargo was loaded on MH370 the night it disappeared.
Uh-huh.
So the cargo was loaded on without being scanned. So, like, you know the cargo is on there. It's, like, on the... like, plane manifest or whatever, but you don't know what it is. Okay, so this is how it goes. The plane takes off at 12:41, reaches cruising altitude. Mm-hmm. At 1:19, the pilot has to change over to Vietnamese airspace and enters no man's land. This is the perfect spot for an interception.
All right.
So, 2 U.S. AWACS, which stands for Airborne Warning and Control System. It's like those planes with the things on the top, the flat things. Should I, like, show you?
I don't know.
Just Google it. Google a picture.
Okay, hold on. What's it called?
It's called an AWAC.
A-W...
AKS.
Did you mean awake? No, Google. Okay. So it's a big plane with a... like a black circle on top?
Yeah.
Type looking? Okay.
Okay. They move into action, jamming MH370, making it disappear from radar.
Also, if you want to look it up yourself, it's AWACS.
Okay, well, not according to when I looked it up earlier. I mean, that does make sense, because it's control.
Yeah, and control
that's my
spelled
bad.
with a C.
Sometimes we like to spell control with a K.
Well, if you're
not
acting,
really.
If you're acting wild out there, You try it, but...
All right, so apparently these planes have, like... Okay, so there's this guy. We have to go back a second. I didn't put this in my notes, but it's in here.
Okay. She pointed to her head. It's in her head.
There's this guy on the documentary. He's this French man. Oh. And his wife and his daughter were on the plane. So this guy, he's just, like, looking for answers. He's, like, asking the government. They're not telling him shit. So he decides to start looking into things for himself.
Classic government.
So he comes in contact with this guy who apparently was, like, a Secret Service agent and tells him that the United States is involved in the Malaysian flight going missing. So this is how like, the AWACS come into the story. Because he starts telling him, this guy, apparently, starts telling him about how these AWACS are, like, they can really jam signals and they can get shit done. Like, they have, like, a ton of, like, crazy, what's it called?
Technology?
Yeah. Florence then, like, he tells Florence his story about meeting this guy, and it sounds stupid. It sounds like it's from a friggin' movie. Like, I met this guy in a dark alley, and he told me the United States was involved.
He was wearing a trench coat, and I never saw his face.
So he tells Florence, and she's like, okay. But she ends up meeting this guy and says he's extremely credible. Everything he's saying checks out. So then I'm like, doesn't check out?
Maybe.
So anyway, back to the story. So that's how that whole thing came about. So they jam all the signals from MH370, making it disappear from radar. The pilots realize they can't communicate. She says maybe the pilots receive an order from the AWACS to land nearby. The captain refuses and continues to fly to Beijing. MH370 is getting close to Chinese airspace, so if they were going to do something, they had to do it now before they reach Chinese airspace. So she thinks maybe the plane was shot down with a missile over the South China Sea in order to prevent China from receiving whatever that mysterious cargo was that was on the plane. They think it might have been like drones, weapons, that kind of thing, because it was never scanned in. The only problem with this theory is that there has never been any debris found in the South China Sea or washed up near Thailand or any of the places nearby. And another issue with this is that it would mean that Inmarsat data was fabricated. But Florence goes into that, talking about Inmarsat and their relationship with the United States and how they have, like, a government relationship with the United States government. Mm-hmm. So they're known for working with a lot of government agencies, and they do have close ties to the United States. So the question is, would they fabricate data to cover up for the United States government and what they did by shooting the plane down to prevent China from getting whatever was in the plane?
I would say yes.
This is a theory where I was like, oh, I think
this one's fucking awesome. I'll buy this one. This cool.
One's intense. And the only reason why I, like, kind of, like, believe it or agree with it is that she did all this research on her own. Like, she has the sources. She shows you, like, the ties between Inmarsat and, like, the United States government. They, like, show you in the documentary. And I'm just like, dude, like, I felt like that emoji where, like, my brain was blown.
I mean, I'm into this one. This one sounds cool.
Because, like...
That makes sense to me. Like, whatever it is, like, they didn't want China to get the cargo. Like, that sounds cool.
Especially if it was, like...
Depending what it
bad.
is. Yeah.
Like, they didn't have a choice. Like, I could definitely see that happening.
Some kind of weapon or...
Yeah. If they were like, okay, well, they have this weapon. Like, we don't have a choice. We have to shoot this plane down.
Or, like, biological warfare type shit, you know?
Yeah.
I'm in for that. This sounds cool.
Yeah.
I'll buy it.
So, when Malaysia, when they released their final investigative report, they don't believe it was the pilot. They don't think he did it. But like we said before, you never know. But they also said in their report that they can't rule out interference of a third party. And in conclusion, they still have no idea what happened or where the debris field of this plane actually is.
They can't rule out a third party, a.k.a. shot down by a missile.
I mean, the other plane was shot down by a missile. The one 4 months after that.
I'm in.
But
for
my
that.
whole thing is, like, planes don't just disappear. Like, they don't, not with technology today. They don't just, like, fly away and you never see them again. This isn't Manifest, okay? Like, this isn't that TV show.
Yeah, and that is, as far as I know, fictional. So.
But I do think the families and the loved ones deserve answers about what happened to their family members, because they can't even, like, put them to rest because they don't know where they are.
Yeah.
And, the main message of this, like, entire episode is you find the plane and bring families some peace and some answers. And I think it's the least the government could do for them, especially if they shot them down. Or if, you know, the pilot decided, like, fuck it, like, I'm killing us all.
Yeah. And how long ago was this now? What year is it again?
2014.
2014, so we're almost 10 years later. Mm-hmm. Still nothing. So one day you're just like, all right, bye, see ya. Let me know when you land, and then that's it.
But the thing is, like, they don't even know what happened to them. I think that's the worst part. They don't even know.
Yeah, except for Blaine, they found a couple pieces, apparently.
Like, the worst part is being in... I mean, I think, like, once they found, supposedly, that one piece of the plane, I mean, I think... that was pretty much, like, the answer the family needed. Like, okay, obviously they're still not alive somewhere, being held somewhere. Like, they're obviously dead. But I still feel like you can't, like, put them to rest because you don't know what happened. It's like when people's family members go missing and they're never found again. Like, you never get over something like that because you don't know what happened.
Right. Let me introduce a new theory.
Okay.
Those people never got on the plane. The plane was intentionally flown into the ocean as a drone. And those people all started a new life somewhere else with new names and new identities.
I mean, maybe. We don't know.
That's an actual theory I've heard about 9/11 before.
What?
About the planes that went to the towers. One of the theories was like, yeah, people weren't even on those planes. They were remote control drones.
I mean, did we even have drones in 2001?
Military? Maybe. I'm not sure. But that's one of the theories I've heard about that shit before was, you know, or those people were just straight up murdered that were on the plane. So then...
I mean, listen, I'd
rather
rather lose consciousness than be flown into a fucking building to be dead that way.
So I'm just saying, I'm into a lot of 9/11 stuff. So I've seen a bunch of things.
Well, you'll probably be into a lot of stuff about this then.
Some of it'll make you look into it and think about it, but some of it's straight up dumb shit.
Like the hijacking in this one.
I'm still talking about 9/11 stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Like, did you know there were no planes? The planes were holograms, dude.
Oh my god.
Open your eyes, sheep.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't believe that one. That one's stupid. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. That one's dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll do that one of these days. Maybe I'll let you know about 9/11 stuff. You know? Mm-hmm. Because I'm way into it, and because we were, like, alive during it, but I don't really remember it because I was 11. Mm-hmm. Well, I was 2 weeks before I turned 11. So I don't really remember a lot, except the teacher at the end of the day was crying, and she said some planes at the World Trade Center, and I was like, what is a World Trade Center? And then I came home from school, and my mom was like, do you know what's happening? And I said, no. And she said, good. And that's all I remember about 9/11.
I feel like we're really off topic.
I'm just, not really, because it's about planes and crashes, and I don't know. So, that was very good.
Thank you.
You did really well today.
Wow,
that was great.
Thank you so much.
That was great. You put a lot of work into it, and it came out real good.
Yeah, it took me forever.
Yeah, well, it paid off. You did good.
I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like other people should know about this. Because I feel like we heard about it, but, like, I was like, damn, a missing flight, that sucks. But then, like, I don't remember anything else about it.
No. So now we just got to get out there, boots on the ground, and find this fucking
We got to
plane.
get out there like Blaine.
Yeah, Blaine. Blaine, hit me up. We're going to go find the rest of this fucking plane.
I mean, I guess the families, like some of the family members.
Wait. Another conspiracy. Blaine rhymes with plane. hello? Isn't that weird?
So weird.
Open your eyes. Hello?
But in the documentary on Netflix, they said some of the family members, they actually like went with Blaine to like find missing pieces of the plane. And he was like, I'm doing it for the families. And I want to be like, no, dude, you're doing it for clout. Like, you don't care about them. You don't even know them.
Hey, what's up? I'm Blaine. This is my welcome to my TikTok. Today we're going to find Malaysia was it 370?
Yeah.
Come follow me for part 2.
I just, like I said before, I just think it sucks that, like, the families just don't have any answers.
Well, that's why
like,
we gotta
that
get
part
out there.
made me the most sad. It was like when they were talking to, like, the family members and stuff, and that French guy, I think his name was Ghislaine. Like, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Like Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah. He was, like, saying how he had to tell his son that his mom and his sister were on that flight, and his son just screamed. Ugh. That hurt my heart.
Yeah. That'll do it.
And, like, the one lady who, her husband, like, they were both flight attendants, but he was on that plane, she wasn't. So that, like, her daughter asked, like, why did Dad have to go on that plane? Why couldn't he not just stay home? Ugh.
It's not your fault.
That stuff is sad.
It's not your fault. That's what we call survivor guilt. Or survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the
story of MH370.
Yep.
So let's get out there and find the rest of this fucking plane.
Let us know what you guys think.
Let us know what you find. We're going to find this fucking plane.
Okay, now we're not going to find the plane. I don't have time. I have to work.
Yeah, we can't even put out a fucking episode. We don't have time to find a plane. But you guys can if you want, maybe.
Or you could email us and let us know what you think about these theories.
Yeah, deadspotpod@gmail.com.
Or hit us up on the gram.
But the easier way would be to find the gram or the Twitter /X, I guess. I don't like
you're in
calling it
denial.
At deadspotpod, all one
and
word.
we made a TikTok.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it.
I mean, we're not like fucking doing dances or anything yet.
Yet. But, I mean, if NSYNC is coming out that reunion tour, we're going to get that Bye 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 dance going.
Well, if you fucking follow us on there and we get followers.
What's our name on TikTok?
Also Dead Spot Pod.
So everything is Dead Spot Pod. Follow us.
And
leave a review, rate, subscribe.
Yeah, and if you find a piece of a plane in the meantime, let us know. Otherwise,
have a great week.
Be safe, be good. Don't jump in the electronics hatch of a plane.
And that's it.
Don't be tempted. Like, you could see it, but just don't jump in there.
Don't do it.
They'll probably jump on your ass.
Yeah, you'll probably get arrested, for sure.
Because there's fucking air marshals and shit.
Yeah, but are there, though? I always wonder if there's an air marshal on our plane. I feel like our plane, like, all the planes we take, like, aren't cool enough.
Like Air Marshal John from Bridesmaids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All
right.
Yeah. So.
Bye.
Well, hey, you can thank the people for listening.
Oh, thanks.
You gotta thank the people for listening.
Okay, I'm being screamed at.
God damn.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for coming. Be safe. We love you. Bye.
Bye.